What is going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to be giving you a list of my favorite league-winning wide receivers that really do have a chance to win you a league solely just by their performances. So if that's what you're looking for, you have found the right video and this is the right place to be. And I also do have a bonus list of later round wide receivers that also have league-winning potential that don't quite fit the really high-level wide receivers at the end of the video. So make sure to stick around for that and watch to the end so you don't miss value that we have. But with that being said, go ahead and drop a like on this video and maybe even subscribe if you haven't done that already and you are new to the page. And I don't like to waste your guys' time, so let's get into the very first player of this list in Davante Adams. Right now, he's going in the second round of drafts, sneaking up into the first almost, but I still love this ADP regardless. And people are really writing him off because of his quarterback change from Derek Carr down to Jimmy G, which, yes, that is a downgrade, but people are treating it like it's Patrick Mahomes down to Kirk Cousins. It's really not that gradual of a difference. If you do think Jimmy G is the worst quarterback ever and he's below average and he's going to kill this offense completely, my answer to you is Jarrett Stidham started 2 games last year and he still led Davante Adams to a 6 catches and over 100 yards a game season, I guess, for those 2 games. And we all know Jarrett Stidham is nowhere near an average quarterback, let alone Jimmy G level quarterback. The point here being is that Davante Adams is going to be Davante Adams regardless of the quarterback, and he's been a top 5 wide receiver on average over the past 7 years, and that's going to keep continuing. He's going into his 30-year-old season. He still has a good amount of prime left in him, so he's not quite washed for everybody that does want to put that narrative out there. So just imagine getting a wide receiver 5 on average in the second round. I'd do it too. I'm going to give you another stat here. I really don't think it's worth talking about, but I'm going to give it to you anyways just to cement this point. He ranks in the 94th percentile of success rate on man coverage and 88th in zone coverage. He will absolutely be fine regardless of the quarterback. He's still definitely a good pick, and this is too low of an ADP in my opinion. He can absolutely win you a league. The next wide receiver on this list is Jahan Dotson, and trust me, this is not a Commanders fan bias. I really do like Jahan Dotson. I think one of these wide receivers in this offense is going to break out. All of my chips are bet on Jahan Dotson, especially at the ADP he's going right now. He's being drafted in the 7th or 8th round, and it really does feel like nobody is showing Jahan any love or even turning and looking at him a little bit. Like, people are going through their drafts and they're seeing him in the 6th, 7th, 8th round, and they're like, I guess I'll take him. It's kind of indifferent, but I mean, he's a player, and it seems like that's what a lot of people are saying about Jahan Dotson. And a lot of that does come with being a Commanders player. They haven't had the most sought-after offense for fantasy, at least in a very long time. And we can't forget, he was the 16th overall pick in the draft. Now, that doesn't mean he's entitled to be a great wide receiver, but I mean, it means he's being underrated. They just brought in a new offensive coordinator that won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs and Eric Bieniemy. Their offense is improving with no Carson Wentz and the quarterback of the future, hopefully, in Sam Howell, but they also have Jacoby Brissett, who is a nice veteran starter as well. And Jahan ran every single route that there possibly was to be ran in the offense when they dropped back to pass, except for one, and outside of his injury games, of course. But again, the point being is that he was on the field for every single play of this offense. And that's just as a rookie, and on top of that, he was really good in success rate in man and zone coverage. But on top of that, he did miss 5 games last year, and if he didn't miss a third of the season, he probably would have finished with 50 receptions and 1,000 yards. As a rookie, again, and that would have put him with guys like Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. And I'm pretty sure everybody with a brain can speculate that if he was to stay healthy for the entire season, he would be going a lot earlier in these drafts. If you still don't believe me, just look at Jacoby Brissett's numbers last year. He led Amari Cooper to 88 receptions and over 1,000 receiving yards, and that was only in 12 games. And that is what Jahan Dotson is going to get, and you can make the argument if Sam Howell is starting over Jacoby Brissett, that's going to be because he beat him out and because he's better. So either way, Jahan Dotson's quarterback situation is going to be viable enough to make him a starter. So yes, I understand that it can be risky, and the Commanders offense has not been one that has been pretty for fantasy at all recently, and the Commanders name and brand itself is just ugly to most people, but we cannot be stuck in the past. We know Jahan Dotson is good talent-wise, and he also has a good ADP really late in the drafts to where you're not taking on too much risk, but he has so much upside on top of that. But the next league winner wide receiver that I love drafting, and I've been drafting crazily in mocks, best ball, and all types of drafts, is Quentin Johnston. And again, his ADP is just an absolute joke. He's going in the 9th round, and that, like, why? And that's just on Sleeper. It's even lower on other sites like Yahoo or ESPN. The Chargers didn't go out and grab their wide receiver with the 21st overall pick just to stash him on their bench and wait a couple years till Keenan Allen or Mike Williams gets injured or retired or whatever. I get that there are a lot of more than capable pass catchers on this offense, again, with Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler even, Gerald Everett, but his ADP around guys like Brandon Cooks and Gabe Davis is really good value. On top of his field stretching ability and his yards after the catch ability, he can fill in for any single injury that does happen, and this is actually a very valuable spot to be in. As we know, Allen is getting older, and him and Mike Williams both dealt with injury issues for their entire career essentially, but especially last year, they combined to miss over 11 games. That is over half the season. So if you speculate either of them are going to miss even one game, that puts Quentin Johnston as probably a top 25 receiver for whatever week that one of them are missing, which might not seem too crazy, but that's a lot higher than where he's being drafted as the wide receiver 50. On top of that, he's going into one of the most pass-heavy offenses in the entire NFL. Again, I get that he's the third option, but this team passes a lot, and the volume is going to be there. He has Justin Herbert that has the most passing yards in the NFL for a quarterback in their first 3 years, in a pass-heavy offense where their receivers are pretty injury-prone. He's 1,000% going to outperform his ADP if everyone stays healthy, and if they don't, move that to 10,000%. The next wide receiver on this list that does have league-winning capabilities is JuJu Smith-Schuster, and I bet you probably weren't expecting that name. General rule that kind of gets forgotten when people look too much into stats for fantasy football is that you really want to be looking for wide receiver 1s over wide receiver 2s and 3s. For example, Marquise Brown is going in the 7th round. He's the wide receiver 1 on the Cardinals. Yeah, the offense might not be that good, but even if they're not good, he's still getting wide receiver 1 volume guaranteed. And he's being drafted around guys like JSN and Kadarius Toney, which is pretty much disrespectful. But the point is, he is the sole wide receiver 1 on this Patriots offense. He's being drafted around guys like Rashad Bateman and Jameson Williams. And I actually think that's laughable. I get it, JuJu hasn't been efficient since his Steeler days, but I think his knee injury concerns is just absolutely blowing out of the water. It's really not that bad. People kind of just tie that to him, and now nobody really talks about him. And again, he's kind of just forgotten in the deep pool of fantasy football receivers to draft. The Patriots just brought him in on a 3-year, $33 million deal to replace Jakobi Meyers this year. He's going to get volume. Not to mention his target share is going to be a lot higher than it was last year with the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes in that offense really likes to move the ball around to a whole bunch of wide receivers, and it's really just a Patrick Mahomes-Kelsey show, and then whoever else just gets targets gets the targets. But that's the reason we were drafting JuJu so high last year, is because he was going to the Chiefs offense where he could be the wide receiver 1, but that obviously never ended up happening. But now we're just drafting him 5 rounds later, and he's probably in a better situation. Make it make sense. Obviously, I know the Patriots offense is nowhere near the Chiefs offense, but it's completely different roles. And JuJu plays primarily in the slot, and he didn't really get slot snaps last year. He only played 42% of the snaps in the slot for the Chiefs, and that is a career low for him. And slot snaps are so important for fantasy football wide receivers because they get a lot of the dump routes, a lot of the short to intermediate game targets, and it's just a lot more consistent. A lot of your favorite wide receivers play majority of their snaps in the slot, like Keenan Allen, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra. Last year, Jakobi Meyers, another slot receiver, played over 70% of his snaps in the slot, and that's exactly where JuJu is fitting in. Jakobi Meyers had a 20% team target share, and he was a wide receiver 28 on the year, but now they're getting an upgrade to JuJu, and the offense is getting a little bit better. And yes, I know the main drawback to this is that the Patriots offense, you pretty much want to avoid them at all costs besides maybe Ramondre, but we still have to be realistic here. He's a wide receiver 1 going in the 10th round of drafts. That just doesn't make sense. It is going to be pretty much impossible for him not to outperform his ADP. But as promised, this is the list of the bonus wide receivers that do have league-winning upside that are going a lot later in drafts, starting out with Marvin Mims, a name you probably haven't heard, honestly. I do want to start this off by saying he did suffer a very, very minor injury a week ago, but he's fully back in practice now, so it's not anything to worry about. So Marvin Mims is a rookie wide receiver coming into the Broncos offense, which might sound unappealing at first glance, but it's really not, and let me explain why. First off, he's being drafted in the 14th round of fantasy leagues, and most likely undrafted in most of the redraft leagues you're going to play in. And no matter how much clowning this Broncos offense got last season, there's no way that it gets worse. And obviously, you will not be drafting Mims to start instantly in your fantasy football lineup and be this magical unicorn of a player that you just accidentally dropped on and found, and now he's a league winner. No, that's not what's going to happen, but he's still a league winner because he's gradually going to get more volume and more work in this offense, and he is a guy that you need to stash because by week 7, 8, 9, or even earlier than that when their bye week is, he's going to probably be a startable wide receiver because he is their wide receiver 3. He's a great deep threat, and he's the first player that Sean Payton actually drafted himself when he came to the team, and they reached up in the draft to grab him. That just shows how highly Payton thinks of him. But again, this offense has to improve. There's no way that it doesn't. They finished pretty much last in every single offensive metric that they're possibly is you could think of. And Russell Wilson didn't adapt to this Broncos offense quite as quick as we thought he would, and he really just didn't look good at all. Like, even I can admit that. But regardless, he is still a borderline elite quarterback with a great roster around him. On top of the high praise and an inevitably better offense, he's the wide receiver 3 again because Tim Patrick suffered another season-ending Achilles injury, and KJ Hamler's injured as well. And if we remember back to last season, Jerry Jeudy was questionable for pretty much every single game in the second half of the season last year. It was crazy. Courtland Sutton also missed a good amount of time too. too. So on top of all this, if there were any injuries in this wide receiver room, he would just be even more of a value. I really do think everything about this offense can improve enough for him to be maybe a bench player. But if you're looking for a last round stash, he is 1000% a guy you need to pick up and easily has a league winning upside that you need in your leagues. But that is going to end off this video of the top wide receivers with actual league winning possibilities. If you guys did get any information from this video, go ahead and like it up. And if you've made it this far and you're not subscribed, I really don't know what you're doing. But I'll see you guys in the next video.